out of a holiday where you're supposed to be very thankful. I'm stuffed, so you're welcome, I guess. It's Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Meow. You gotta jam with it. Well, thanks for tuning in. This is Curtain Call. I'm Erik Ball, and joining me in the studio today is my very dear friend Sean Critchfield. How you doing, Sean?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm freaking awesome. And then Troy Heard is almost here. You know, all that 8 o'clock traffic. You know, it'll hold you up.
Troy Heard.
It'll hold you up. But Troy
heard Troy was going to be late.
Yeah, and he is. And the reason I'm with these two is because I'm desperate. No, Glenn, he is listening and watching and totally thoroughly enjoying the Addams Family over at the Smith Center, and several of my other co-hosts, they're out doing their thing, man. It's a, you know, as we get closer to Christmas, you know, the theater season's kind of died down a little bit, but the working schedules have a tendency to lay on top of one another. You know, everyone's taking these side jobs, you know, ringing bells in front of Smith's and caroling at the mall and doing all these other things. So
it's on to me.
You know, so it's kind of, you know, everyone's doing their thing, so it becomes a very busy schedule. But and I'm saddened because this is the last day of Thanksgiving break as a school teacher. So I'm actually very anxiously looking forward to this week, but saddened because I got just a taste of what is called sleeping in. And I've heard stories. I heard tell stories that people sleep in until 11, 12, and seem to really enjoy it. And I got a chance to sleep until about 9:30, 10 a couple times, and I'm just like, oh, the sweet nectar of life that is the pillow.
Yeah, working nights, I didn't even know there was such a thing as 9:30. I didn't know that existed.
You know, I remember the days of college. I wouldn't take a class if it was before noon. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even sign up for the thing.
Tim Burris used to joke that when we went to college together, and I would come into class like 15 minutes late almost every day with little bits of McDonald's biscuit still stuck in my beard. Like, I ran out of gas. There was traffic. It's horrible.
Oh, and here's Troy Heard right now. Hey. Troy Heard, welcome.
Hey,
here, grab that headset right there. Yeah, but you know, Thanksgiving was great. I don't know about you guys, but I had my fill of festiveness and good food. My wife made a juicy turkey, and everything was great. I promised myself that What are you doing over there? Playing Rock and Sock'em Robots?
Pardon me.
There we go. Troy Heard.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Well.
Welcome. But anyways, I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Oh, it was great.
I love Thanksgiving because it's a break. You know, I get into this routine. It's my 9th year in teaching. And, you know, you get into a break where you can kind of relax. But more importantly, it's a time to reflect and a time to, take a moment or two and say kind of realize how thankful you are for all the blessings in your life. And I can honestly say that I had a good chance to do that. And I'm very thankful. For one, I'm very thankful you guys are here. But more importantly, I'm very thankful for this theater community in Las Vegas and everything that everybody does. And everybody has their own secret little agendas and stuff. But for the most part, I would say that it's a great, thriving, collaborative community. And God bless us everyone. So.
I'm very thankful for these awesome headsets because when Troy put his headset on and started talking into his microphone, I hear Troy directly in my head.
Yeah.
And if I could choose
Lots
any
of people
voice,
do.
Yes, absolutely. If I could choose any voice to be my Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, that's very Disney of you.
I'm about to cry, y'all. You caught me at a very emotional moment.
Yeah. Well, if you're just now tuning in, or if you were listening to the sports station and you're like going, "Who the stink are these guys?" Yeah, this is a weekly theater arts talk show. We want to bring some more awareness to the community and what the community's offering as far as live theatrical art. And we're hoping that you'll maybe join us every week. Usually we're from 6 to 8, but this week we had to be booted a little bit further down to 8 o'clock because of the Lady Rebels live game. And, I can't go one-on-one with Lady Rebels. They'll take me every time. And so we kind of do what we can to make sure that we're out here at least once a week and giving you the lowdown of what's going on in the city, and more importantly, shed a little insight on our creative process and the thoughts that we all have as artists in the community as well. And that's why I invited these two very thoughtful gentlemen to the studio so that we can maybe shoot the proverbial poopy about theater in Vegas and just maybe see what comes up, because technically we didn't have any theme or notion scheduled today. So I think we'll just kind of talk about what's going on in the community and see what comes out of it. So
philosophize a bit.
Yeah, good old Socrates.
Yeah,
so that's the only one I could come up with, right off the top of my head.
Do you not know your Monty Python? You don't know the Philosopher's Song?
Well, you have to understand, the only way I memorize the states and their capitals is from Yakko's World CD, and I actually started.
So we hear. Speaking of arts and entertainment, we hear that Troy Heard is now living the Las Vegas entertainer dream.
Yes,
and
he is.
He is now married to a showgirl.
Yes,
so
the director and the showgirl. Thank you.
Yes, congratulations, and congrats to Katie if you're listening. I know you are, because you're a religious follower of Kurt and
She should be, but she's actually doing the showgirl dream right now.
Over at the Venetian.
In front of the Venetian.
What that's called, the Winter in Venice over at Venetian?
Winter in Venice. It had its big opening night this past week, and it's going well. It's lots of fun. I'm out there as a talent wrangler, making sure they get to where they need to be and not accosted by too many drunks.
Do they still give you cattle prods there?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's some Sheldon Adelson for you.
Well, and I had a dessert and coffee with the Escobar family over there, and Nick Escobar is in charge of all the lighting for the. So I got a little kind of inside scoop as to how it came about and everything. Sounds like a really great thing. Even if you're a local, you don't have to be a tourist to enjoy something like that. Get down to the Venetian. They do 2 parades a day.
2 parades a day, 6 p.m., 8 p.m. But there's stuff going on all day and all evening. They've got atmospheric characters beginning at 4. There's ice skating and
there's cool costumes with like LEDs and actual frost growing off of the tips of their nose. I mean, it's cool. Pretty impressive.
How they take their breaks in a meat locker.
They do.
Yeah. Well, it keeps the effect.
And that's Sheldon Adelson as well.
Wow.
Sheldon, if you're listening, we love you.
2 references in under 5 minutes. Very good.
So the last time I was on, Glenn Heath had a thing with the bell. What's the thing with the bell?
Well, you know something. Yeah. And I must tip my hat, because our friend Glenn is watching the Addams Family at the Smith Center right now. And if I know Glenn, he probably has one earbud in listening to the show as he's watching the Addams Family. So the bell kind of came about because it was sitting here. They use it in the weekly radio shopping show, and I don't know what they use it for there, but we thought it's like the big red button that's in the room. Don't touch the big red. It winds up getting touched again and again. So I don't know. We just started ringing. I think I was using analogies an awful lot one show, and every time I used an analogy, they just ring it, because I have a tendency to do that. And then another time it was for euphemisms. Every time we used a euphemism, and bing. And then last week it was every time we wanted to tip our hat to Glenn because he wasn't here, we rang the bell. So we need to figure out what we're going to do with the bell this week.
We should have a code word like the old Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
Today's secret word.
It should be the.
No.
Get out of my head.
It can't be the. We ring it every 2 seconds. It should. What could be?
Ironically, this is a running thing actually with Troy and I, so that could actually be what it is. He and I, we are on the exact same page. Anytime that he and I sit down and start talking about theater, not only do we have the same shows in mind often, we usually have similar concepts in mind.
Yep. Is this a triad? Because I feel very similarly about that with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And you.
So
this is like a mighty Bermuda Triangle right here.
A theatrical void between us.
Oh, wow.
Ideas get lost in there forever.
Man. We need like 2 more people. We'll have a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was a terrible movie.
Yeah, I want to be Sean Connery. Can I be Sean Connery?
Yes. Okay. I don't know who else was in that movie, so yes, you can.
I'm not sure who else was in that movie either.
It was a terrible movie.
I like it, competing Sean. You've just made my night.
Well, why don't we say something like what would be like a descriptive word that we would use?
An aha moment. Aha! Oh, you're in my mind. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
or a word
for
the bell.
Secret word.
No, you don't understand. You said secret word. I'm excited.
Oh, okay. Tissue. No.
Tissue.
Well, there's a box in front of me. That's the first thing I thought of.
There's a box of what in front of you?
Tissues.
Tissue. It is. There it is.
I broke the
Sean
bell.
destroyed the bell.
Very delicate with the bell. You're a heavy-handed bell ringer.
I've been told that before.
You know, it happens. What football game is on? I don't even know. Green Bay and New York.
Giants.
Keep you posted. 38-10, New York Giants. Fourth quarter. Okay.
Must be late there.
So for all you sports fans that are hanging on that just don't want to get up and change the station, we'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted. Right now, the Thespians are ahead, 38 against the Dancers, 10. There we go.
Oh, so wrong.
So we went and saw Addams Family. Have you either one of you seen Addams Family?
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy it?
Mm-hmm.
Ish. If you had to rate it on a scale of a Duvall A through F.
Ooh, don't give me that one. Don't give me that one.
Or we could go teacher. I could say 100% to fail.
I can be very specific about it.
Okay.
I know the origin of it from Chicago.
Yeah. It's changed.
Yeah.
Greatly.
I can still see what they were doing with it. The guys who invented, created Shock Head Peter, which was those were my favorite parts, were the puppetry.
Basil.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Twist.
Basil Twist. Amazing stuff. I have a soft spot for puppetry myself.
Honestly, cut a half hour out of the show, kill some of the ballads, and put in more production numbers. It's the Addams Family, and it became very bogged down into traditional romantic comedy. And at one point, I leaned over to Katie and I said, "Look, is this Addams Family or La Cage aux Folles? You know, give me more creepy, spooky, ooky fun."
The fun stuff, like the silly, the spider on his back.
Yeah,
that's the fun stuff you want to see.
The tassel and it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, exactly. More of that. The dragon under the bed was awesome.
Yeah.
But when it became the whole, oh, I'm in love, and oh, do I tell him? Do I not tell him that I know the secret? And
can I tell you something? This is my tissue with the show.
I'm a heavy-handed bell ringer. Hold on. There we go.
Yay.
I'm going to give this to Troy.
I actually thought Robert Sills is his name, I think, who played Gomez. I thought he did a great job. I did not get and or like the dynamics between him and the Morticia. And I guess it stemmed from I didn't care for the portrayal of Morticia much from that particular actor.
It was very different. It was very different.
Very, very different. And
the others.
Sorry, the character's name is Morticia?
Morticia. Thank you. Anyways, so when
it's my job right now. I didn't see it, so I'm going to keep the
thread there. But I didn't get it, and I thought that there was lots of standout moments in performance. I thought the Pugsley was great. I thought Gomez. I thought Wednesday was great. I thought the guy who played Lucas was great. But the parents.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they were supposed to be. You know, they're like the parents in again La Cage. They're the bland Midwestern. You know, I thought Lurch was amazing. And that, you know, that surprise at the end.
Yeah, that was
he had
great.
the money nose of the show.
That was great. But it was very different. If you saw the Broadway, premiere, it was very different from the Chicago one. And if you saw the tour, very different from the Broadway one. I mean, 5 songs different.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where I couldn't rest after I saw it. It's like, what's missing? What's wrong? And I looked it up, and this tour has not. I mean, this is, like you said, this is revamped from Broadway, and it's not getting good reviews.
Yeah.
For some reason, I mean, it's sold on Broadway. The critics hated it, but
they changed it off of Broadway. I'm finding, and this is just my own personal observation, I'm finding a lot of tours that come off of Broadway. I mean, they changed up Billy Elliot, they changed up Shrek, they changed up, what else did they change up? I'm trying to think of a couple others. Coming out of Broadway, where they had a home, and they had a routine, and then they had to squeeze it into a lunchbox to take it on the road. And they did a lot of changing for it. And what's funny is that, and I'm giving myself a plug and not meaning to, but I want to use it as an example. We just booked Shrek for Faith Lutheran in 2014. And I'm finding out that version is the tour version, not the Broadway one, which is not a bad version in my opinion, but vastly different from the Broadway one.
Well, why would, I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And if it hasn't, why such significant changes, especially if it has a financially successful run? Why would you want to change it before it goes on the road?
Right.
Because I would think that's the one thing people are waiting to see is what.
And I get the idea of having to make some changes in order to make it roadworthy. When I did when I directed Last 5 Years, I directed it to go on the road. and I was very specific in that, but nothing changed from the script of the score.
Exactly.
You know? When I worked for Utah Shakes, I toured a number of shows with them.
Yeah.
And our set was much more elaborate. Our lighting was much more elaborate in the Randall Theater. And then when we moved on, everything had to go back down. But again, the general integrity of the show stayed intact. So I don't see what this trend is with the different versions.
Do you think it's how do I put this? Do you think it's kind of a lackadaisical attitude of being a creative purist? Do you think that the times they be a changing?
I think the lackadaisical attitude would be to leave it alone. Don't touch it. It may be the complete opposite. The artist wants to go back and mess with it a little bit more. I mean, I don't get it.
I mean, this just seems really far-fetched, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. There's always that possibility of wanting to re-reach the same market, too, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So whether it's for people to go and say, oh, I want to see what changes they made to it, or if they're approaching it from a perspective of we're offering you a different experience than you saw before. You know
maybe.
what I mean?
But that should be advertised. Yeah. You know, that's the DVD culture behind the scenes. The alternate ending, you know. Yeah. Then say, you know, this
special feates.
Exactly.
They're going to start calling the Broadway shows the director's cut.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because we had a masterclass workshop with Courtney Wolfson, who played Wednesday with faith students, and she was a delight. For one, she was a consummate professional and very, very generous with her giving nature towards the students. I was very appreciative of that. But one thing that she said that was very interesting to me is that she's been with the show for 2 years now. She took over the role of Wednesday on Broadway when it was on Broadway. Then she walked away from it for a little bit when it closed, and then they called her back about a month later when they were getting that show together, and they wanted her as the staple in that tour. And so that was really cool, and she's been with the tour ever since. And I said, how has this show changed for you, you know, since you started it until you finished it? And she says, what's funny is that this particular cast, you know, the mindset going into the tour was that everybody really appreciates the fact that this is a new story to tell, and that every day, I think that's what fuels them to want to retell the story over and over again, because we're celebrating in 2 weeks our 1,000th performance of this. And she goes, to do a show 1,000 times seems out of this world. She goes, that's why I like it, is because I like the character, and I like the fact that everybody enjoys reapproaching it. And so I wonder what first-timers thought of the show, rather than people who have kind of journeyed with it. Because I love the Addams Family. I grew up lived in Chicago for a while, so I followed it pretty romantically, you know, from its incarnation, and to, you know, and I have a half of a purist heart and half of a let's workshop everything until we find out the inner workings of everything, you know.
You know, but I think there's room for both too. You know, like to speak on two things that you said. One is, you know, I'd like to say good for them as artists, and good for them as good for the director that they're approaching it like that, because I saw the Elphaba. Wicked. I saw Wicked. Thank you.
Okay, that is funny. I'm sorry. What's that one show with the witches? I'm sorry.
So no, but I saw Wicked for the first time, and I was fresh eyes seeing it. I didn't see it in any of the first time was at the Smith Center, and there was one performer, and I don't want to point fingers or say blah blah blah, but there's one performer in the show. Not that they're listening, but there's from wherever they are on tour, they're tuning in right now. But there was one performer, and you could tell that he'd been in the tour for a while, and he was getting the job done, and he was hitting all the moments, and he was hitting all the notes, and he was saying all the lines, and there was great characterization going on, but his heart was not in it, and it just
mailing it in,
reeked of it, and you could see it, and it just the whole stage dimmed when he walked on. And
I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah. And it bummed me out a little bit, you know. So good for them for finding things, you know. And like, one of my favorite stories that I tell my students all the time, is one of my favorite theater stories that happened to me. I was a young actor, and I was still getting my chops, and I was working again at Utah Shakes, and I was doing the fall season, and we were doing kind of the pre-show before it. And there was an actor named Ernest Perry, who was playing Hogue and Driving Miss Daisy. He was working with Pat Frazier, who was playing Daisy. Pat had played the role something like 9 times before this, and Ernest had played the role something like 7 times before this. They were made for these roles. And so at this point, you would think that he would just know this script intimately, you know? And they were about halfway through the run, and Ernest is a very generous guy, really great actor, and he would come out and watch our pre-show every day. He'd watch our pre-show and leave about 5 minutes early and sneak down stage and get ready. And I was headed in, and he was sitting out on the little veranda, and he was reading his script. And I jokingly looked at him, and I said, Ernest, don't you know your lines by now? And he looked up at me, and he said, Sean, baby, there's gold in here. And I never forgot it, that here's a guy who'd played the role 7 times before, was in a long-term committed run to this again, and was still spending time digging in that script. And I respected that so much, and it changed me as an actor, and you know, I hope for the better, to the fact where I don't release my script. I mean, I've done hundreds of performances of tournament, and I'm still looking, you know, to see, trying to find, what am I missing? What's the moment that I'm missing? What are the things that I'm not seeing? You know, and I did 100 and something performances of Romeo and Juliet as Friar Lawrence, and my final performance, I made a realization that I should have made 5 performances in. And it was in this one moment where Friar Lawrence is keenly aware of the fact that this may be the last time he ever sees Romeo alive. That it is a possibility, that there's flaws in his plan, and this could go horribly wrong. And for whatever reason, I never addressed it until that long in. And had I not still been looking at my script, had I not still been thinking, I would have overlooked that. And I believe that even though it was one performance, that entire tour would have suffered for it. And so I've played Michael and Pillowman twice now, and still making huge discoveries in the second one that I never noticed before. And so I think that you have room to uphold, you know, I have this rubric as a director. I say, if you're upholding the integrity of our concept, the integrity of the lines, the integrity of your character, you can make any choice you want. And I think that if you set the confines of, this is what we believe our show is, that you can still find freshness and newness within inside of it without rewriting the whole thing.
Can you imagine if everybody in every walk of life did that with their jobs? I mean, seriously, find new in their everyday punching the clock ritual.
It would be a much more productive world.
It would be,
without a doubt.
Because that's the only, you know, it shows true, that the actor, I can't remember who you said his name was, shows true his passion for creating.
Ernest Perry, yeah.
Ernest Perry. And so, you know, that's what spoke to me from that story. Is just like, wow, that's just somebody who appreciates the creative process. You know, because you don't own it and then leave it, and then own it and then leave it. It should carry from project to project and should always be in your hands.
You know, and it was beautiful too, just this is a tangent that's semi-related. To watch, you know, I had the pleasure of getting to watch that show in its original incarnation between he and Pat, who had never done it together, then in the middle, and then at the end of the process. And to watch as they became friends and as they began to love each other as people, to watch how that affected what they were doing on stage was beautiful. And even just, he would approach her much more harshly and much more heavy-handedly, much like how I ring the bell, when, you know, in the scene when she's having the breakdown. And by the end of it, he was balling her up in his lap and cradling her and talking to her. And it was just exquisite to watch, to see those things happen. And I think, again, that's Ernest and Pat being honest to who they are in that instant, in that moment, and beginning from there as actors. So it was just beautiful to see.
It's a 5 tissue moment.
Thank you very much. Every time I watch David driving Miss Daisy, I need to bring some tissues with me. Thank you. Well, we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. While you are listening to the lovely commercials of our lovely supporters, go to Facebook and like our Facebook page. You can search for Curtain Call with Erik Ball, and you can like us, and then we'll try to keep that updated and let you know what's coming up in future episodes of Curtain Call. Also, we have a YouTube station, a channel, page. What is it? Page? Channel? I don't know what it is.
Channel.
But, yeah, channel. And what we do is our good friend Glenn Heath every week takes the audio and puts it to a video and converts it for us and puts it on there. And if you subscribe to that, then you can relive archived episodes, especially if you are part of the episode, if we mention a show that you're in or something, if you want to direct your potential patrons to that link, or if you just want something for your family and friends to listen to, that's great. If you want to see what we look like, it's going to be on there. God forbid. But go and subscribe to that as well. You can also call into the show if we're talking about something that interests you. It's 221-SAVE, S-A-V-E. Again, 221-7283. If you have something that you'd like to add to the conversation, we always love having people call in. But yeah, for right now, we need to take a break, and we'll be right back. Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Hang tight.
Hey there, this is Kate Weatherhead from the web series Submissions Only, and this is Curtain Call with Erik Hall.
How fresh is Sweet Tomatoes produce? Let's just say within 24 hours of being in the ground, it's on a refrigerated truck on its way to the restaurant. Sweet Tomatoes food is fresh from the farm to your fork and made from scratch every single day. Sweet Tomato Salad Bar includes fresh tossed signature salads and fresh cut produce, plus 8 made from scratch soups, hot pasta, muffins made from scratch. You can also create your own low-fat yogurt dessert. Something healthy and nutritious for the entire family. Treat yourself and your family to fresh, great-tasting, wholesome recipes, fresh seasonal vegetables, and tossed salads prepared every 20 minutes. There's 4 Sweet Tomato locations in the Las Vegas and Henderson area. For more information and hours, visit www.sweettomatoes.com or call 888-374-8358.
A toast to all you caniacs, ever faithful aficionados of fresh, never frozen premium chicken fingers from Raising Cane's. You are keen connoisseurs of Cane's crispy, extra long crinkle cut fries, dedicated to the made fresh daily cane sauce that twirls tongues in a tastefully tangy tango. Caniacs, we toast you all from Raising Cane's.
5 Las Vegas locations. Go to ilovecanes.com.
Big Dogs has just one question for you. Why in the world would you eat, drink, and play anywhere else? Big Dogs is the neighborhood brew pub and casino, famous for their baby back ribs and spicy Big Dog salad, to grandma's pot roast and homemade soups daily. But Big Dogs doesn't expect you to take my word for it. Stop on by and find out for yourself why they're the home of award-winning and locally made handcrafted beers, with 8 to 12 brew styles available at all times. Think I'm exaggerating? Come in, try the Leg Lifter Light, Holy Cow, Pale Ale, Black Lab Stout, Tailwagger Wheat, and reigning World Beer Gold Cup medal-winning Red Hydrant Ale. Big Dogs has it all and is open 24 hours a day for dining, drinking, gambling, or, more realistically, all 3. You'll find friendly Midwestern hospitality at all 3 locations, be it West Sahara at Torrey Pines, Rancho and Craig. Big Dogs is the place to go when you want it all. Las Vegas is home for great food, great beer, great fun, and of course, great gaming. After all, it is Vegas, baby.
Hello there, this is Roger Rees of New York's Peter and the Starcatcher, sending you back to Erik Ball here in Las Vegas.
Thanks for joining us for Curtain Call. This is Erik Ball. I want to shout out a few things here, things that are coming up in the Valley that you're going to want to take note about. If you're an actor, there's a great play going on at the Las Vegas Little Theater called The Tale of the Allergist's Wife. It's by Charles Busch. The auditions are coming up on December 10th and 11th at 7 p.m. They're going to be at the Las Vegas Little Theater, directed by Steve McMillan. It's a great show, hilarious and very, very poignant in its humor, too, if you know what I mean. Kind of naughty here and there as well, but it's a great show, Tale of the Allergist's Wife. If you don't know what that show is all about, I highly recommend Googling it and checking it out. That's going to be a great show to audition for. Another thing that's coming up, and if my mouse would work, I'd let you know, it is the Musicology Academy. Musicology Academy, which is located on Hinson Street in Las Vegas. They have it's a youth vocal group. And what they do, they specialize in voice, piano, performance, dance, acting, everything. And they got a great group out there, and they're having the vocal group auditions coming up December 7th, 14th, and 21st. What you need to do is just go to their website, musicologyacademy.com, musicologyacademy.com, and then you can see all the information there and get the lowdown about that. Another thing that I want to mention, this is and again, I'm going to have to label this as a personal plug. The Rudy Foundation and I are partnering together to bring the Las Vegas Valley the inaugural Master of the House Scholarship Showcase. That's coming up on April 5th, 6th, and 7th. And what it is, and this is a shout out to all you high school drama people. I don't care if you're a teacher, a director, a student, or somebody that just really wants to get involved in drama in a high school level. This is for high school age students. You can either be associated with a high school or an outside of high school performing arts group. What we're going to do is we're going to have an evening of a showcase, and we're going to showcase the 10 groups that enroll with us first. And they're going to bring in 10 to 12-minute versions of their, like an abridged version of their musical that year. And we're going to have professional adjudicators that are professionals in the industry. And we're going to have it's very fun. It's going to be very fun and game show-like. And the Rudy Foundation is making this a very worthwhile adventure for you guys out there, because hopefully it won't be terribly difficult to abridge what you're already working on throughout the course of the year. But more importantly, this gives you a chance to earn a scholarship that you can apply directly back to your program. The Rudy Foundation is going to pick the top 3 schools. We have a third place prize of $1,000, a second place prize of $1,500, and a first place prize of $2,500. And not only that, but the first place team gets Rudy Rudiger himself to come and talk to the school. And he's a very inspirational speaker.
So cool.
It's going to be very, very cool. Master of the House. Now, if you want information, you go to CherylRudiger@me.com. And it's RUETTIGER, CherylRudiger@me.com. We will have a website, masterofthehouseshowcase.com, that is still being worked on by many elves living in a tree, and that will be up very shortly. But Master of the House, keep your ear to the railroad track on that one. We're going to make it a big freaking deal and have lots of fun with it. Now, we also have something we need to talk about. What's happening over at the Cockroach Theater? Do you have that information?
Absolutely. The Ragtag Entertainment and Cockroach Theater are working on an event. It's a Sondheim and Poetry event. It's going to be at the Cockroach Theater. You can get more at cockroachtheater.org or at Ragtag Ent. It might be cockroachtheater.com.
I think it's .org. Let me double check.
Yeah, we'll but in the meantime, it's...
it's .com. Cockroachtheater.com.
There you go. So... it's going to be a really neat thing, though. It's Sondheim songs on various stages of relationship. It's going to have Kelly Ward, Glenn Heath, our own Glenn Heath.
Where's the No, we're tissue. Oh, sorry.
Kelly Albright, Brandon Albright, Sandra Huntsman, Eiler Evan, Kim Glover, Alex Mendoza, Jessica Ritter, and it's also going to have top poets from Las Vegas. And I actually... I don't.
You're a slam poet yourself.
Yes, I am. I'm a slam poet. At one point in time in town, I had top slam poem, top slam poet, and I was the slam champ in Las Vegas. I competed in nationals and toured and opened for KRS-One.
Do you have your belt?
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
Belt?
It's not very cool though. It's like a little leather poet's belt with like a pouch for pencil.
Modified fanny pack.
Yeah, it's a No, I don't. It's not a fanny pack. It's a satchel.
Of course it's a satchel.
So, but that's 7 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I know a lot of the poets that are going to be there, and they are mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So it should be really cool.
Aren't they doing something where they're rotating the different couples each night?
I think so. I'm not sure what the particulars on that are. But
you could go 2 times and see 2 different shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's great.
And I'm working on getting out of work to go and crash it and perform at it as well, which I don't perform poetry often in town, but you know, I would really like to come out and support this. So I think it'd be really, really good. But it's you know, the local poetry scene is little known in Las Vegas, that we have a really great poetry scene, and it's growing, and it's been around for a long time, and we have a voice at nationals. We have a lot of poets that are nationally known, and you know, it's a really fantastic scene. So I think it's also one of those untapped treasures in Las Vegas. There's a lot of poetry readings that you can check out in town. If you actually go to, if you Google Las Vegas literary calendar, there's actually a calendar that's got all of the spoken word and open mic events in town. So it's
great.
Again, who says there's no culture in Vegas?
That's right.
All right. I say...
So that's that event. I would also like to mention that if you do watch the video of tonight, I was unaware of the plaid shirt rule. So
we don't have a video.
Yeah,
we're gonna take pictures and we're gonna do a slideshow because Glenn's not here. He's the video wizard.
Well, again, I was unaware of the plaid shirt rule, but I got my lumberjack hat on,
Okay.
so I figured that counts.
That works with the plaid.
Between the three of us, we'll chop a tree down. That's all I'm saying. Hey, and did you hear Sweeney Todd got picked up over at the Onyx again? They're going to do another run from January 4th through the 20th.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which I think it's great because it was extraordinarily well received, and everybody who was involved is like super excited to do it again. So, rock it out. Also, love to our boys over at Love Taps. check out Love Taps and their weekly podcast. And
just listening to them today, they reviewed Peter Pan.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
They said it set a bar for local theater. A high school production set a bar for local theater.
I completely agree with that.
Up.
I completely agree with that, and that's not just because I did the fights for it.
Wow, that's really
completely agree
cool.
with that.
Well, much love to the Love Taps guys. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Jeez Louise. Yeah, I was very proud of my kids at Peter Pan and Faith Lutheran. They did a great job. So.
I often say to people, I just said it today. I'm trying to remember who I was talking to. Friends of mine that live up in St. George, that one of them is a theater teacher up there. One of them used to be a master electrician for Utah Shakes, and good friends of mine involved in theater. I said that Faith Lutheran, in my opinion, is doing work that is as good or better than a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing on a community and some professional work that I'm seeing in town.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, that's very, very cool. I don't even know what to say after that.
Well,
thank
here's
you very
what
much.
a department's only as good as its teachers, professors, and I'm not just saying that.
I'm going to share my cake pop with you now, Troy.
I didn't know we had baked goods.
Actually.
This is from Cupcakes, and Sean brought me this because he and his girlfriend were over at Cupcakes over at Tivoli Village, and I'm going to give a plug to Katie Thompson. She owns Cupcakes, and she is a former student of mine, and I always joke with her because I directed her in Grease, and she played Jan, the one pink lady that was always eating Twinkies and stuff, and I said, listen, we introduced you to Cupcakes, young lady. Well, anyway, she went to get a business degree. She's extraordinarily successful and a very intelligent young lady. Very savvy, business savvy.
And it's called Cupcakes?
Cupcakes.
Free plug here, or do they have a Facebook page or something?
They have a Facebook page and a website, and they just opened a store in the marketplace above Brio at the Tivoli Village. And I would highly, if any of you have kids out there and want to do like a little princess birthday party or a tea party, or if you just want to order some darn good cupcakes for an event, she is a consummate professional, and I've used her for every show that we've directed at Faith, and she is first class.
I'm just gonna give a little warning here. I think it's only fair to add this disclaimer that if your mother bakes, you don't want to try her snickerdoodle cupcakes because they are slap your mama good.
I'm gonna use that from now on. I love that. They are slap your mama good.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good. So anyway, well, listen, there's what I wanted to talk to you guys about particularly, because if lightning struck this room right now, we'd be out of two major players in the Las Vegas theater scene here, because you two are extraordinarily inspirational to me personally, and I
hope you're talking about both of Troy Heard's fists.
Yes, fists of iron.
Boom, boom.
But you guys are extraordinarily good at what you do, in my opinion. You kind of pull inspiration and creativity from places that people don't even know they have. And I wanted to talk to you about the process a little bit, because I'm looking forward to let's take it there, on a high school level next week, offering students auditions to the biggest show of the year. We're doing Legally Blonde, and it's so funny because I always joke. I say, the week before auditions is my favorite week of the year because I'm everyone's best friend. But we're looking
your Facebook requests
just shoot through the roof. But now that we're looking at the audition time, it's extraordinarily stressful. The kids really work themselves up into a tizzy, and then the dust has a tendency to settle over the next week, a couple weeks afterwards, in the resolve of all that. But a lot of these students don't realize, and I would argue anybody who works on any theatrical project, is that the creative process and the business of doing theater, like having the auditions and putting a cast list together, and actually, the creative process starts way before that, and starts, as a director for me anyways, it starts messing with you way before that, because you start psychoanalyzing every little moment and stuff. You were talking about how, you were sitting there during Addams Family, you had a hard time just watching the show as a patron because you started deconstructing it, and I would argue that as a director myself, I have a hard time just approaching the show from a demands standpoint. This role needs to be able to sing this and do this, and this role needs to be. I have a tendency to go in it with these lush characterizations and in hopes and dreams, And I have to stifle that, and it's frustrating for me, to do that. And so I was going to ask you guys on a directing level, as you approach your individual projects, or as you're kind of looking to put the business end of putting up a show into play, how do you separate yourself from having to do the mule's work of plowing the field and getting auditions done and over, to actually putting your concept and your vision up on stage through that? It's like filtering it through that. What do you do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that, just a moment ago, we spoke very highly about the work that you do. So I think it's only fair to ask that we would love to hear your take on this as well within this conversation. So, but furthermore, there's this thing in improv that they call pimping, where you pin the responsibility onto someone else in the room. And though this may seem like it, it's also just the adoration of a fan. And in the last time that I was on, I wound up talking a lot about Troy Heard's concept, which I think is really funny that he's in here now, for Hamlet. And we talked about that, a lot of it is subjective. And we talked about the fact that I really enjoyed what he did with it, and I thought it worked very well. And, and he shortened the script, and he took a lot of pretty daring risks with it that I thought panned out very well for him, and for the show. And so I would love to hear his take on this, because I think it just kind of comes around full circle.
From the standpoint of a patron?
Yeah.
Who enjoyed the show?
Yeah, and I'd love to hear, like, how he, not even necessarily from that show, but just in general, how he builds that up, because I think we both, you, me, and Glenn, all talked about the fact that we thought that he was doing some of the best work as a director in town. He's very innovative and creative, and so...
Well, we left the doors open so that all of our heads could fit through.
But no, that's absolutely sincere, and I mean, the proof is in the pudding that if you watched the last time that I was on, I said these things without Troy Heard here. Yeah. So it's not lip service. It's genuinely something.
Well, now that we've effectively pigeonholed him, no, seriously,
you're on, Troy.
Well, what did you do? Like, how do I approach something?
Like right now, how many projects are you have simmering on your stovetop?
Announced publicly 2.
I'm not even saying announced. I don't want to know what they are, but creatively, how many are you working on?
5, 6, 7, 10.
Yeah.
Film and theater, both. I mean, I'm taking notes right now.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact that this is the guy who consistently tells me that he's gonna retire or take a break. I hear it from him like after every project. It's awesome.
It's
well, I've got Death of a Salesman and The Mystery of Irma Vep are 2 coming up. At any time I'm writing one, I'm doing rewrites on another, and trying to finish a third, and trying to pimp. And a couple of people to come collaborate on some other things.
And can I ask you something? I'm hoping that people who are wanting to be involved in theater creatively in this regard are listening. But I'm also wondering if people who aren't involved in theater so much, how do you sleep? I mean, it's like for them, for their sake, because creative people say, well, we got to keep busy, otherwise I don't know what to do with myself. But like for me, I have a day off, I have to paint the garage or something. I have to keep myself busy. There is no time off because my head doesn't turn off. Mm-hmm. What do you say to them? Is it just part of the fabric of you?
Yeah, I've always been this way. It's don't ever tell me no. Don't tell me don't do something. Mm-hmm. And this is something I ran into in school early on. Was a lot of, Troy, you have to be this. Troy, you have to be this way. Troy, you have to do this. Like, no, don't. I guess it's my nature. Mm-hmm. Sort of a rebel. I was like, And the other thing, when I was doing workshops and classes, I always tell actors, don't let someone else guide your career. You go in an audition and that's it. It's not up to you anymore. But, if you're going into audition after audition after audition and not getting cast, write a show. Find a playwright. Do something yourself. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Do I ever take time off? I don't think so. That's why I always threaten retirement.
Well, this is... I was going to say something. As far as my students are concerned, I run into an awful lot of students who don't want to go into performing arts or theater in general, because their parents don't want them to. They don't see a future in it. Part of my thinking along that, and I'll see what you guys want to add to that, part of my thinking to that is people who don't find success in performing arts are ones that aren't extraordinarily proactive in everything they do. I would say it's one of the most fulfilling industries in the world, creatively, emotionally, everything. But it's also the easiest to be lazy and sit back and point at everyone and say everything is going wrong. Everything you're doing is wrong. It's the easiest to sit back and put your feet up to.
And, you know, if you've gone through the 4 years, or they say it takes 6 years for your 4-year degree now of college to get your BA in theater, you just wasted that. You know, I'm at the point now where I'm telling kids, don't major in theater. If you want to be an actor, be an actor.
Yeah.
Go act, go audition, but if you're going to go to college, get a business degree. Get something like that. Get an education degree. If you're truly an actor, you're going to get cast. You're going to get work. Take classes. Take acting classes.
I mean, that's how I did it. I didn't, you know, I am an advocate for education, but I didn't go to college, you know, and I'm a working professional. And it was exactly that. The way that I taught myself was, you know, if there was an actor that I really admired and respected, I'd, you know, grab him after one of our performances and I would say, hey, I'm working on this monologue. Would you mind giving me a class? And, you know, most actors are either generous or egotistical enough to say yes. And either way, I get the benefit of getting to work with them. You know, one of the things that I tell my students all the time is that if you ask someone if it's difficult to work in theater and they tell you, yes, it's impossible, you can't do it, it's because they failed. If you ask any working professional, anyone who's thriving in the industry and working at their career, if you ask them, is it difficult? They will say, no, it's just a lot of work. And there's a big difference. If you're willing to put in the time, if you're willing to put in the effort, if you're willing to have the discipline, you will work. And that's the end of the story. It's the people that didn't have that discipline, that didn't have that time, that didn't have that effort, that didn't make it, that now want to tell you, oh, it's impossible. Why? Because you didn't make it? You know,
that self-discipline.
Yeah,
that self-discipline. That's the most probably one of the biggest resources you can carry as an artist of any kind. If you're not if you can't forge a path for yourself in your head, if you can't forge a path for yourself in any creative way, on any personal level, you're going to have a hard time doing anything, building any sort of ensemble, relationships, trust. You need to be able to dictate your own personal creative schedule.
Well, it's any field. You know, nobody's an overnight success. The overnight successes have decades behind them. You know, or in Justin Bieber's case, YouTube. You know? But you have to keep working at it. You have to constantly work at what you want and strive for it. And if you, like I said, if you see failure, if you find yourself failing, you've got to work harder. Work 10 times harder. Let that fuel you, or find a different way in. Like I said, create your own projects.
And you gotta, can I add to that? I believe that you need to invest yourself in your projects. It can't be just something that you do. Being busy and being invested are two very different things. You know, to invest in a project and to find yourself emotionally connected to it and believing in it and you know, really kind of focusing on it, that's really how you got to do it, because it doesn't matter reviews and how long a show runs versus, you know, when it's closed, and all those things are only relative to what others perceive the project being. It has nothing to do with your investment. It has everything to do with everything else, the marketing of theater, you know. And so you have, in my opinion, you have to be extraordinarily willing to invest yourself in your project.
And along those lines, coming back to the question at hand, I think that it's also knowing when to say no, to be invested enough in a project to say no. It was like I recently was asked to do a project that I really believed in, to direct it, and my plate was so full, and I was working on other things, and I had 9 million projects, and yeah, I probably could have squeezed it in, but I loved the project enough to say, I am far too invested in how gorgeous this work is to not give you my best. And I would rather you go find someone that can make this their priority. And if I could magically wave a wand and rearrange everything, I would take this project on over some of the other things that I'm doing. But I've given my yes, and I'm invested, and I can't give this its due, so I don't want to touch it, you know?
If you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was. So unknown author.
Tissue time.
Thank you. Well,
so can I spin this back to Troy?
Please.
And so.
Oh
and,
God!
and
I spent the
back
past
on
5
spot.
minutes trying to send this away. Okay.
So you're asked to do a project and you're handed a script, and you're not incredibly familiar with the script. What does it look like from there? What is day one through?
Read it first. Find the gut feeling. You know, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Does it make me laugh? Do I want to live with this thing?
How much influence do you take on? Because you know how somebody says, "Oh, this is a brilliant show," and everyone's like, "Oh, I love that show. I love that show. I love that show. I love that show." Read it, and you're reading it going, "Oh." You know, I mean, how much influence do you take into consideration when somebody wants you to start working on a project?
Like how much? What do you mean?
My question is, do you believe that you must be passionate about a project?
Absolutely. Well, you find the thing to love in it. You find the thing to love in it. If it's something you're not 100% invested in, for me personally, honestly, I've been lucky in that very rarely have I been attached to a project that I haven't absolutely loved, you know, in one way or another. I can only think of one that was sort of I really don't want to do this thing, but I'm doing this thing anyway because I have to do this thing. And
yeah.
That's only been one time. The rest of the times, you know, I'll love the script. I'll love the project.
Is that it's like a sour taste in your mouth every time you think back at that one project?
No, I learned from it. You know, that's where I learned how to say no. Yeah. You know, if I don't find a commitment to it, you know, you have to say no to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, Greater Tuna, when I approached Greater Tuna the first time, and I read it, and I you know, it was an opportunity for me to direct something in a new venue and to work with a new group of people at OVLT who are amazing, you know, and I took the project because I wanted that kind of foot in the door, and I wasn't thrilled about it, and it was actually in the process that I fell in love with that show, and I realized how genius it was, you know. So yeah, I think that's great. You know, I mean, like Neighborhood 3, you know, what was it about that? Because there was so much that it was just like I was inundated with so much great stuff in that, from the acting to the script to what you did technically. What was the catch on that for you?
It was the structure of the script. I mean, the way it's written, the way it's laid out on the page. The playwright Jennifer Haley she'll be getting a Pulitzer eventually with her writing. There's just something about it. It was just, the beats were laid out. It was almost Shakespearean. You know, it was bare bones on the bare bones. There were no stage directions.
Harold Pinter style. Huh?
Yeah. So when you read it, just these images would flash in the mind, and the characters were just so ordinary yet so extraordinary. You know, they took the mundane, everyday, suburban life and elevated it to this gut-wrenching, terror-filled world.
Yeah, the play was a merger of this game that they were playing bleeding over into reality, and it was a violent game, and it was really remarkable.
And to this day, I kick myself for not auditioning for it. And to this day, I kick myself for not auditioning for it.
I got to do the fights for it. Yeah, that comes up a lot. Maybe we should ring the bell every time I say I did the fights for it.
There we go. Well, let's take a quick break. You're listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball. I'm here with Troy Heard and Sean Critchfield. We're talking about what kind of drives us to the part of directing and taking on a project that's more than just the business end of it. What kind of helps us to invest our emotional selves into it, and how hard is that, and how, you know, what we have to do in order to put our mind into it as well as our heart. And so it's kind of hard to explain. It's a really messy explanation, but I'm thrilled that I get a chance to talk to you guys about it, because you have two very influential people in the Las Vegas community in this studio today, and so we will be right back after this quick message. I'll talk to you guys.
This is Maggie Wheeler, Janice from TV's Friends, and oh my God, you're listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball.
Police to patrol vacant homes. Contact your city, county, or housing authority to cut overgrown lawns and pick up trash. Report broken windows and doors to the police, and educate your child that it is not okay to go into an abandoned house. To learn more about protecting your neighborhood, visit ncpc.org or contact your local law enforcement agency.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
Big Dogs has just one question for you. Why in the world would you eat, drink, and play anywhere else? Big Dogs is the neighborhood brew pub and casino, famous for their baby back ribs and spicy Big Dog salad to grandma's pot roast and homemade soups daily. But Big Dogs doesn't expect you to take my word for it. Stop on by and find out for yourself why they're the home of award-winning and locally made handcrafted beers, with 8 to 12 brew styles available at all times. Think I'm exaggerating? Come in, try the Leg Lifter Light, Holy Cow, Pale Ale, Black Lab Stout, Tailwagger Wheat, and reigning World Beer Gold Cup medal-winning Red Hydrant Ale. Big Dogs has it all and is open 24 hours a day for dining, drinking, gambling, or, more realistically, all three. You'll find friendly Midwestern hospitality at all three locations, be it West Sahara at Torrey Pines, Rancho and Craig. Big Dogs is the place to go when you want it all. Las Vegas is home for great food, great beer, great fun, and of course, great gaming. After all, it is Vegas, baby.
A word from the cast of Hot in Cleveland.
Want to hear a joke?
Oh, yeah,
sure. What's the #1 killer of women?
Well, you're still here, so that rules out crankiness.
And tracksuits. Heart disease.
But that's a joke?
Oh, no, it's an absolute fact, but the American Heart Association says you can save lives by passing it along to 5 women you love.
Aww.
So I'm starting with 3 I tolerate. That's a joke.
Find out more at goredforwomen.org.
This is Matthew Scott, and you're listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is Erik Ball. This is Curtain Call. I'm with Troy, Heard, and Sean Critchfield. And we try to give you a weekly dose of what's going on in the community, plus some innovative, creative thought about the theatrical process in general, and we're glad that you're joining us today. If you have a second, please join us on Facebook and search for Curtain Call with Erik Ball and like our page. Also, you can subscribe to the archive footage of all of our broadcasts here on YouTube. Just kind of search for Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Well,
it's stalkerific.
It really is. And you can send us all your stalker messages that way as well. Well, before we went to the commercial, we were talking about the creative process as a director and how you approach stuff, and we kind of inundated Troy with what do you do and how do you do it, and I kind of interrupted him so that we could take a quick commercial break. But is there anything you want to, should we hand it off to Sean and see what he has to say, or
sure,
where are we at?
I'll bounce it to him. Yeah, I mean, it's from the gut. When I see a script, I'll read the script. I'm reading constantly, and like you asked me how many projects do I have simmering. That's why I have so many projects. I find so many scripts. I find what's the story? That's the question I approach as a director, is what's the story? What do I want to convey to the audience? Not, what's my message, what's my theme? It's what's the story, what's the ABC, what's the song? When you listen to the radio, you find a new song, it tells the story. Mm-hmm. That's where I come from.
Well, it's funny, from a teaching perspective, as these kids prepare for auditions at my school, they're thinking about what character they want, what song they should sing. And they're not, it's hard for me to get in their heads. You got to worry about what story you're telling. Mm-hmm. Even if you're singing a song for an audition and you're looking at the spot, the focal point, the back wall as you're singing above the director's heads as you're doing your thing, you're not doing a solo. There's never a solo. Mm-hmm. You're always singing to someone. There's always a conversation back and forth, even if no one else is speaking. And what story is being told and what part of a bigger story is this moment. And it's hard for them to kind of put that in their heads in an audition situation, but I argue that it makes the audition process so much easier if you can, because then you're a drop in a veritable, pool of water, and what you're doing is you're just extracting this one moment and presenting it, and it's your interpretation in your 2 minutes, and doggone it, have fun with it. Make it good, make it creative, make it vibrant, make it worth watching. And it's hard to do that. So
there was this great thing that you said during one of the breaks where you said that this concept of concept.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was curious, like, because I think that's wrapped up in this discussion of what your process is.
Well, when I went back to Georgia after I lived here before to run a Shakespeare company, I had this you talked about cocky, egotistical actors. I had one who ran into me at a party, said, "Oh, you're the guy who does the concept Shakespeare." It's like, I don't think of it as a concept, but when I read a script, if I'm reading Macbeth, well, that's kind of a bad example, but like Measure for Measure, which is my favorite Shakespeare. Now, when I read it, I don't see tights and doublets. It's whatever world pops into my head. What is this visual that I see? What are they wearing? Oh, well, they're wearing business suits because they're all government officials. when I go to direct it, I see the business suits and I think, okay, well, logically, what is the bigger world from there? So you mentioned Hamlet. I've read Hamlet numerous times. You know, the whole thing. You've got the whole political castle struggle. But there was one time when the first time I broke the script down, I looked at it and the family jumped out, and it was very domesticated. And that's how I went into that angle, you know, and cut it down. And I focused on the family. What are the family dynamics in this 90-minute tale we're telling? And that's, you know,
leave it to Beaver Hamlet.
Well, that's why, you know, I call it. That's why I read an article that said, you know, the word concept is BS. You know, we prefer approach, and I've kind of adopted that. It's my approach to a script, as opposed to I'm creating this grand concept. It's going to be Much Ado Set on Mars because I like the idea. But for me, it comes out of the script as opposed to me imposing something upon it.
Sure.
You know,
you don't view Disney World as a concept. You experience Disney World as in your own way. It's a place, but it's also an experience, and it's also nostalgia, and it's also, you know, whatever you want to. It's not a concept, though.
Right. Each person finds their own Disney World, their own way into it.
Right.
On a brief tangent, when I was judging the high school competition at Utah Shakes, and these girls came in and they were all in nuns' habits. So they all walked in and they started setting up, and I said, "Oh, measure for measure." And they looked at me and went, "How did you know?" It was just so funny.
I'm surprised they didn't flag him.
Yeah.
So what about? I mean, when you find a script or you toss a script, how do you get into it, Sean?
I think again we could ring the bell because I think that we draw a lot of parallels. I think that there you go. But I think that the schedule is different, but the process is the same. And what I mean by that is I don't believe in coming into anything with a preconceived notion, and sometimes it can be very frustrating for my actors. It's one of those things that I always say, that the show that I have in my head is not the show that I want to put on, and the show that they have in their head is not the show that I want to put on. It's the one that we agree upon. That's the right show. That's the show you should be doing.
I think I agree with you. I think you have to immerse yourself into the world in order to become part of the creative process of bringing that to the stage. But anybody who's trying to perfect the world that they envision initially in their head before auditions is wasting time.
Yeah.
It will never happen.
Coming back to Greater Tuna, I had a fellow director in town see it with me, and she had made this comment that she was really frustrated because what she wanted to see on stage she wasn't getting. And I said, well, in my opinion, that's your fault for wanting to see something. You know, why not just enjoy the experience of what's happening and see if you can merge the two, you know? And then I went backstage and she had come with me, and my actors were like, oh, you're going to love the second act. We added this one whole moment, and this show is very heavily improv based, and I gave them moments of freedom to be like, play, find. And they're like, we added all this stuff, and we came back, and she said, aren't you upset? And I was like, no, why would I be upset? That's amazing. It's this living, breathing thing that's gone past us, and it's growing, and it's moving on its own, and that's the type of theater that I love to do, is this thing, you know, I have this analogy that I always tell my cast that for me as a director, the beginning half of the process is me pushing a boulder up a hill. And that once it gets to the top of the hill, there's so many directors that want to run around to the boulder and try to lower it down the other side. And you can't. Once that show leaves your hands, you have to take your hands off it and trust that you aimed it right, you know, and that you've done everything right to that point. And then at that point, you can nudge and shape and keep it back on track. But don't try to get in the way of the momentum. You're just going to get crushed. Let the show become what it is, you know. So my initial thing that I do is actually at the read-through. That's when I first start to conceptualize. And I literally close my eyes and listen to the show. And I see what's happening, what picture's unfolding, how are these voices, if it were a radio play, what am I envisioning in my brain? And then that's what it becomes, because it plays to the strengths of what I'm hearing from my actors, you know, and the concept is coming out of their mouths. And then it's the same type of thing, and I just don't fight it. You know, we talked last time, and I don't watch shows. I try not to watch YouTube clips of a show.
Right.
I try not to watch other performers, and it's a dual thing. It's not only because I don't want to repeat someone else, but I also don't want to be stifled from repeating someone else because I have a bias. I don't want to go, well, they did that already. If it comes from me, then we're doing that, and it's an authentic thing.
Well, it sounds like you proved that with Tuna, because Tuna's pretty much, you know, I can't think of the right word, but it is what it is. It's been done the same way so many times, and then you take a director like yourself that can bring something new to it, but you don't bring it, you allow it to happen.
Yeah.
One might argue the same things with Hamilton.
We had the ending of our
Hamlet's
show.
been around for what? How many hundreds of years?
A little bit longer than Tuna.
Yeah.
A little bit. I was really proud of the fact, and it was something that we discovered and found. You know, I wanted to really play with the blanket racism that was in the show. Like, I really wanted to toy with the idea of that we're being held, you know, it was this very meta thing that I was getting too caught up in, where we are just as bigoted for laughing at these people as they are for the jokes that they're talking about these people. That we're bigots on top of watching people who are bigots, you know, because we have a bias against them. And eventually my actors were like, you're losing, they told me this, you're losing sight of the thing that we initially talked about, and that's that these are real people. And so forget that meta concept, and let's get back to that. And I allowed my actors to do that, and we had this sublime ending 5 minutes, which are, you know, really riotous in most performances I saw, where everything got very sweet and very touching, and the prayers were very earnest, and they were very honest, and it became this very sweet thing. When Petey did his final monologue about the dogs, there was not a dry eye in the house, you know, and the very, very last line when he says, and God, if you're really there and you really did help create all these things, we sure could use some help taking care of it. And it was this beautiful moment, and it was done so well by Troy Tinker. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful, stunning work. And that was him, you know, that was this thing that we found, and it kind of shaped and happened. You know, and that's the fun part for me, is also trying to fit characters into the, you know, into the right place. And oftentimes I'm asked, like I just was asked to step up as a director for a project that I'm still considering. I want to read the script a bit more, where it was a group of actors that approached me and said, we would love for you to come in and direct this piece.
Why do you suppose that is? Is that a trust thing, you think?
For me?
Well, as a director-actor relationship thing, why is it difficult?
Because I would love some say-so. You know what I mean? Like I think that's going to be a more difficult project, because I would love to step into that role and you know, and cast the show how I want to cast the show. And this particular group of people are all very talented, and odds are I would cast them. But I'm looking for particular things when I hold the audition. And I'm looking not only for how talented is the person, but how do we work? How do, you know, can I speak your language? My auditions, I've often been told, seem more like acting workshops than auditions, because one of the things I hate is you come in. I remember when I was a young actor and I came in and I did this audition, and I later wound up talking to the director, you know, a year later. He was a director in another project, and they said, why didn't you cast me? And just out of curiosity, you know, how often do we get an opportunity to ask that?
Right, you asked that question.
And he said, you know, I really felt that the monologue that you were cold reading should have been angry, and you weren't playing it angry. And I wanted to be like, well, why didn't you ask me to play it angry? You know? And that's something that doesn't get afforded us very, you know, because the director has very limited time. So I say, my auditions are long, and I expect you to be there the whole time.
Yep.
And I workshop, and I play, and I give my actors the opportunity to give me their best work.
And you know something, that can I just say that happens more and more in the community right now. There's an awful lot of precasting, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing on a community theater level, a university level and stuff. But I think that you got to be careful. I think because
you need to be. I mean, I'm not an advocate, but I do believe it. I mean, if you have to do it, you have to do it. There's certain roles, or there's a project that comes out of, like you said, you know, an actor bringing you a script, and then that actor has that communication with the other people. Don't, you know, say you're doing Auntie Mame, and Mame is cast, say that the role of Mame is cast. You see that. You know, it's not. There's
no surprises.
Yeah, but don't put out a blanket open audition saying all roles when you know that's cast.
Yeah, if you're going to precast something, cast it and move on, and cast
say it. You know, own up to the fact that you're precasting. You know,
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because you're also. I mean, step away from the creative side of theater for a second. The business side, you're strapped to the responsibility of putting on a good show for whatever company you're working for, and so there's an obligation that you have. You're going to put all of your main players in place. You're going to do a show to the best of your ability. And you need to use the resources for which you know you have. And so I understand the obligation.
And I think that, you know, I think that's very smart too. One of the things that I definitely do is if I'm going to, like, Troy says that there's 7 or 8 projects going on in his head, and I'm sure that 4 of them are exactly the same between he and I, because that has a tendency to happen. But when I have that concept, one of the questions that I ask myself is, do I have the actors that I need in my pocket? So I do mentally precast. I do definitely know that, if I'm going to do 3 viewings, that I've got a Barbara King and a Susan Lowe, that I've got a Rachel Lanny and a Cynthia Vodovos, that I've got a Will Klunt and a Mike Kim. You know what I mean? And I've got those things lined up that I know those people, and I make a real point of making sure that they come to my auditions, because I'm not going to go into a show that I don't have the manpower for, and then hope for the best. And then if someone unseats them, great.
And it happened with Hamlet too. I mean, nobody announces Hamlet without knowing a Hamlet, and I knew 3 Hamlets out of the cast based on it. Gio was not one of them, but Gio Nichols showed up, and I'm like, oh, well, that's it. He stole it for Hamlet. So yeah, exactly. You've got to have.
And
an
I
idea.
appreciate that you were considering me, but I just was so busy.
I understand. Next time.
That's one role I gotta say that I often say that it takes a special actor to pull that off, because oftentimes by the time you're old enough to play Hamlet, to get it, to have the life experience, you're too old to play it.
Well, and not only that, but you have the stigma of Hamlet too. I mean, it's like playing the Phantom of the Opera. No one should ever want to play that role, because it's been iconized. Thank you. To the point to
How many
where
points in Scrabble did I just get? Anyway, go on.
Triple word. But it has been iconicized so much that it's like, if you vary at all, then you're doing a disservice or something like that, and so that's why I think it's tentatively approached at every turn.
I'll tell you, I felt when we were talking about concept, this came up in Sergo, did the female Hamlet, where the whole idea was that Hamlet, when Hamlet was born, was shipped off to Wittenberg, and was raised as a woman, and was taught to behave like a man, and then was like bound so that it didn't show, and then brought back, and we had a boy so that he could have an heir to the throne, and etc. So that was this whole concept. So it was like they were taking this already really deep, rich, complicated concept, and then like throwing more complication into it, which was amazing to me. But I remember coming backstage one time, and Katrina Larson, who played Hamlet and did a fabulous job, was sitting in a makeup mirror bawling. And I sat down next to her, and I looked at her, and I was like, what is going on? I thought someone died, I said, what is going on? Are you okay? And she couldn't talk. She was so choked up she couldn't talk. And I looked at her, and I said, you just realized you're playing Hamlet, didn't you? And she nodded her head, yes.
Wow.
And I said, good. If you're not approaching a role like that with that kind of respect, with that kind of reverence, then you're doing it a disservice. Like, I feel like her, and watching the shift from what she was doing in rehearsal before to what she did after was amazing once that realization hit about who she was playing.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it shows that she's invested. That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, coming back to the precasting thing, my concern is when it becomes so in. That's when I think it becomes a danger. When a group is doing shows and it is just 4 or 5 people, and it's the same people doing the roles over and over and over, then I think it becomes a danger.
And then something I would say, just from having my ear to the proverbial railroad track of the theater community in Las Vegas, there's companies that have reputations like that. And it's like, you got to be careful, because where do you draw the line from drawing from a pool of talent that you can rely on to drawing from the pool of talent that you are friends with and cocktails with? And
well, at which point do you announce yourself as an ensemble, as a repertory company? I mean, if you're going to do that, then just be a true rep and say you are.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a definite way of doing things.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, the thing that I noticed that we keep coming back to is call a duck a duck. Like if it's precast, say it's precast. If it's not, say it's not. If these roles are and these roles aren't, say that.
Right.
If you're a rep company, say that.
Well, I think Insorgo finally made the strides towards that.
Yeah.
That year and a half before they,
dismantled.
Yeah. They had the ensemble, and they worked towards an ensemble, theater. I mean, there's room for it, but like you said, call a duck a duck.
Yeah.
To say you're going to do it, but think about the audience too. I mean, we all have our heads laying on that perilous railroad.
Yeah.
You know, we hear it. You know, there are the companies that say, you know,
yeah,
you hear it from the audience. You know, I'm tired of seeing the same person play the same role.
Yeah. Do you think people avoid auditions because they think that it's already
Definitely. I've heard that complaint from many actors.
I think so too.
But it's everywhere I've lived. It's here, it's in Atlanta, it's everywhere, you know?
And I don't know about you, but from a directorial standpoint, I have a natural thing inside me as a human being that sits in the director's chair at auditions and just instinctively roots for an underdog. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see somebody come walk into the room, before they even open their mouth, you're just like, You know, it's human nature, you know, and you're sitting there going, okay. And there's some sort of natural, let's root for this underdog before they even open their mouth. So I don't know, just from my personal perspective, go to auditions to go to auditions. I mean, don't necessarily go to auditions just to get that role, but go to auditions for experience, go to auditions for exposure, go to auditions for the trials of auditioning.
Audition is 60% of our craft, and so many people neglect it. You know, I know a lot of directors that are very open to you coming in and saying, look, I cannot work on this project.
Right.
I respect your company. I respect what you do, and I'd love to get on file with you. Do you mind if I audition?
Get on file. That's the key. The very first show I directed when I came back here was Hellcab at Las Vegas Little Theater. And there are people who came in into audition for that show there are people who came into that audition that I have cast since, who I did not cast then, but did such a good audition, but I said, you know, I can't use you on this project, but I will remember you. And they were so gracious about that a show came up where I needed them, and I called them, and I've cast them, and I've worked with these people since. And on the flip side, there are people who came into the audition who are just so rude and obnoxious that when I've seen them in audition since, I will just look over them because of that.
One of the things that I tell my students is that your audition begins when you walk through the door.
Oh,
It happens with your audition screener. It happens with everyone, you know. And
almost every community theater group has somebody waiting in the lobby.
Yeah.
Do you leave your car in the parking lot, your audition has begun.
And incidentally, Hellcab was my neighborhood 3 where Erik said that that's the one he regrets. I had another project going on, and I was so mad because I went out to audition for Hellcat. So I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it, and when I went to see it, it was just really fun. The set was amazing. They parked a car in there and did the show in a car. It was beautiful. But
well, listen, we do need to take a quick break, and then we can come back and we can resume our conversation. But if you're interested in chiming in, 221-SAVE is our number. I'm trying to keep one eye on the phone over here. But I sometimes wonder if people are calling in and I'm just ignoring them because I'm kind of engrossed in the conversation. But do call in if you have something to add to the conversation, or if you want to ask a question, and we will be happy to exercise that. In the meantime, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Hang tight.
Hi there, this is Rick Ellis, and you're listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball.
Are you sick and tired of your garage door going up but never coming down, or going down and coming back up on its own? The kids knocking the motion sensors around? Oh, it's a nightmare. Custom Hearth & Door is here to help. They are your one-stop shop for garage doors, garage door openers, and repairs. Great service deals all the time. Also, you can't be Custom Hearth & Door and not do fireplaces, as they provide high-quality wood-burning and gas-fired fireplaces, fireplace inserts and stoves, chimney systems, and accessories. Custom Hearth features the best brand names in the business, including the LiftMaster garage door openers with their new keyless entry with fingerprint verification, plus products from Real Fire, Craftsman, Fire Magic, and Lennox. Call Custom Hearth & Door at 657-1280. That's 657-1280. Or visit them online at custom-hearth.com. That's custom-hearth.com.
How fresh is Sweet Tomatoes produce? Let's just say within 24 hours of being in the ground, it's on a refrigerated truck on its way to the restaurant. Sweet Tomatoes food is fresh from the farm to your fork and made from scratch every single day. Sweet Tomatoes salad bar includes fresh tossed signature salads and fresh cut produce, plus 8 made from scratch soups, hot pasta, muffins made from scratch. You can also create your own low-fat yogurt dessert. Something healthy and nutritious for the entire family. Treat yourself and your family to fresh, great-tasting, wholesome recipes, fresh seasonal vegetables, and tossed salads prepared every 20 minutes. There's 4 Sweet Tomato locations in the Las Vegas and Henderson area. For more information and hours, visit www.sweettomatoes.com or call 888-374-8358.
With the home foreclosure crisis upon us, vacant properties and deserted houses are changing the landscape of our neighborhoods. These deserted houses attract vandals, thieves, and con artists. In times like these, keeping your neighborhood safe is more important than ever. When foreclosures rise, so can crime. Uncut lawns, trash, and empty driveways are open invitations for crime. Empty homes make perfect locations for drug dealers. Squatters find vacant houses, move in, and take over. Teenagers use abandoned homes for parties and to vandalize. To combat these new threats, urge your community association to work with local police to patrol vacant homes. Contact your city, county, or housing authority to cut overgrown lawns and pick up trash. Report broken windows and doors to the police and educate your child that it is not okay to go into an abandoned house. To learn more about protecting your neighborhood, visit ncpc.org or contact your local law enforcement agency.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
Check out Town Square's new hot spot. That's Ranch House Kitchen. They open every day at 8 a.m. and breakfast is served all day long till closing. Formerly known as Cadillac Ranch, the new Ranch House Kitchen has brought entirely whole new energy to the upper level of Town Square's Restaurant Row, located directly across from the Rave movie theater. Everyone's welcome at Ranch House Kitchen because they cater to all size parties, families, and business gatherings. 3 full bars with your favorite alcoholic beverages, and if you bring the kids 12 and under, Monday through Friday, they eat free. Everybody's invited to ride the mechanical bull. For fantastic food, drinks, and a great atmosphere, head down to Ranch House Kitchen, 6593 Las Vegas Boulevard South in Town Square. For reservations, call 702-749-6400.
Hey, this is Julia Murney, and you are absolutely listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Don't stop listening.
You're absolutely listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball. I love that one.
That's nice.
You're absolutely listening to Curtain Call. There was no mistake about it.
There's someone at home with an Absolute vodka bottle.
Absolutely listening to Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Well, thanks for tuning in. We're sitting here with Sean Critchfield and Troy Heard talking about concept, I guess. Approach when approaching a conceptual approach.
How do you approach a concept? How do you conceive an approach?
I can't conceive that. Well, I can approach it. Wow. But
yeah, there we go.
So let's take right now. I mean, we're all probably, I'm going to just assume that we're invested in a project or two coming up. Where does that? How do you prioritize these projects in your brain? I mean, how does
calendar? Which one's next?
It just happens. It's like
he has alerts. And
oh, look at that! It's the 15th. Anti-MAME today.
Hey, that happened this summer.
Honestly, right now, my calendar is Tournament of Kings. And anytime I get like this window of opportunity, I'm like, what can I do? You know, and I jump at it. But unfortunately, that's that's not fair. Fortunately, I'm very lucky to be in the position.
Well, it's the professional nature of the beast.
Yeah,
you're ruled by the ticking of the clock.
And there's so many, like I have my students, my acting students, and I never get to see the things that they're in. And for some reason in Las Vegas, there's this aversion to matinees.
Yeah.
So there's so many companies that don't do matinees, and so I don't get an opportunity to see that. And people are like, oh, well, there's Monday night industry night. Well, I have shows Monday night. So it's just, I do want to take just a second and harken back to what we were talking about just before we left.
Please.
There's 2 things. One, I wanted to say that I appreciate something that you said because it is not the standard model in most high schools that I've seen. For the Nevada Arts Council, I got to come in and direct a Shakespeare show for Palo Verde High School.
Yeah.
And when I came in, this one freshman knocked a role out of the park in auditions, and we were doing Tempest, and she knocked Miranda out of the park, and I cast her as Miranda. And it was this big deal. It was a big deal among the teachers, and it was a big deal among the students, because that was a senior, I'm doing finger quotations that you can't see, but that was a senior role.
Wow.
Because, it was one of those things where it's like, the seniors are usually the ones that get the leads, and usually that's a matter of experience, and they've
climbing
just
the
grown.
proverbial ladder.
Yeah, and they've grown, but
experience.
I don't think it's an entitlement at all. And it took them a long time, but once they saw how good she was, then everyone got on board and it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that you said that you'll root for the underdog, and I just think that
I think that as an educator in theater, that you're shooting yourself in the foot if you put up those limitations.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you make it known to students that we picked this show because we have a strong junior senior base that could do this, I think that you're turning people away from theater. Now, granted, this is from a high school educational level. This is when we are introducing them to what theater is still. This is the bunny hill to the proverbial vast ski slopes of theater. And we need to make every turn welcoming because it is such an ensemble thing, theater, and you've got to. Now, granted, we were talking earlier about how we do believe that it's perfectly within a director's right to precast and to flesh out a cast accordingly, so long as you're communicating with the community at large what you're doing. I think it's vital in a high school theater environment to make sure that everyone is on an even ground before they audition, and let them know that, and give them examples and proof that they are, and give everyone the same opportunity. You may have Betty Jo Dixie, that's her name, Betty Jo Dixie. She may have received the lead in this show, then this musical, then this show, then this musical, and she's a senior. Betty Jo comes into that audition room, she has to earn that role. She has to work just as hard as the freshman, other girl has to, and let them duke it out. Let them go through that proverbial pressure cooker, because that's part of the process. If you're an actor and you don't like auditioning, quit right now. You have to enjoy the preparation that's involved. You have to enjoy the looking forward to it. You have to enjoy those butterflies. And if you cannot provide an environment for every student in a high school to have an equal shot at a role, then you're doing your students a disservice.
Let me peel this onion a little bit more with you, because you just said something that I think is fascinating that I'd love to hear more about.
Please.
There's a different rubric for directing in a high school setting than there is in a community setting, and I don't know that as well because I walked in and broke these rules. You know what I mean? And you just talked about the fact that, well, that's great, and we believe this, and we believe that it's okay to do this, but in a high school setting, so there was two sets of rules for you there. Like, Troy had said earlier that all of our heads are on the railroad chopping block, for precasting. And for a while there, I was teased off and on about the fact that Cynthia Vodovos was my Bernadette Peters, because I cast
your
her
go-to Bernadette.
Yeah, she was I cast her all the time. And it was because I knew what I could get from Cynthia. I believed in Cynthia's work. I thought she was a fantastic actor. And so she repeated to get cast with me, and through no fault of her own, she started getting this pointing finger about, he's playing favorites with you. And I suppose on some level, and so that I was aware of what she could do, so that helped her, in the auditions. So we're all guilty of it in some way, and I'm curious, if you were outside of high school, I'm sure you would have your Bernadette Peters, you'd have your people that you would go to, but you have to make sure that you're not doing that in high school. Is that a true statement, and what other differences do you think there are between?
It is probably the hardest thing that I have to do as a high school director, because there's this little thing that we all have called human nature. And that comes into play.
I don't know about Troy.
I'm in. We've proven that many times.
But what you do, I would say that in my experience, let me put it that way. I don't want to say across the board because I surely don't know. In my experience as a theater teacher, people are drawn to theater for different reasons. But I think, and if I ever go back to school and write a dissertation, I'd probably write it about this. I think it's fascinating how we all come to one essential truth, and that truth is we seek through theater a means by which to fill a void in our lives. We look to get something out of it that helps heal a wound that is on our souls. And I think that every person involved in theater does that. And I think theater is attractive to high school age students and young actors because of that. It is a community. Kids eat lunch in my lunchroom every day. Why? Because I give them free food? No, because of community. You know, it has nothing to do with, I mean, people can view that as a clique, fine. But how many high school cliques are there? I mean, you can view anything as a clique, for crying out loud. It's more about they find comfort, they find a soft place to fall, and this allowance to emotionally invest themselves in the creation of a project. And I think that there's something very, very special and magical and often overlooked about that. I would say that's the same thing with a choir or a band. How often in high school, other than performing arts, does a student get the opportunity to work in collaboration with their brother or sister? They don't. They're told to fill in the dot with a number 2 pencil all by themselves, or they sit silently in the corner. They never work collaboratively. And so I think that coming back to the auditions and giving them the same opportunity, I think that welcoming embrace that they look forward to is part of this fulfilling this void in their lives before they even reach the Legally Blonde script. You know, I think that they are looking for this means by which to exist in high school. And it's very, very interesting to me because I adore my job as a director at Faith. I adore my job as a teacher at Faith. But more than that, I am blessed to be a counselor to these students at Faith, because that's what you are. You know, in between the passing periods in the hall and before and after school and during lunch and after the cast list is posted and people are wiping away their tears, it's that time that's the most precious and productive and influential. And I think that it is extraordinarily hard for anybody, including myself, to sit behind a table and say, kids, everyone's going to be based on the same proverbial performance rubric called an audition right now. It's very hard for me to do that. But I promise every one of my students and parents that are listening, and any student to come, so long as I'm a high school teacher and director, I will offer every student the exact same opportunity every time. Now, granted, there may, in the grand scheme of things, be viewed as people getting lead roles again and again. Can I just say that comes with part of that promise? If somebody comes in and earns a role, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That the bias can't go both ways.
It can't go both ways.
That you can't say, oh, I've cast them too many times. And even though they earned it because of that,
Right, and the apples and oranges kind of comparison that I always use is you can have a student that's a 9th grade bench warmer on a football team. Well, if that student is on the football team year after year after year, there is no guarantee that he's going to be a starting quarterback his senior year. Now, if that bench warmer watches and studies and sees what all these other players are doing and gets in the gym and gets into training and does all the football things football people do, you know, that's the elongated ball, right? Yeah. Now, does he have a better shot at becoming a starting quarterback? I would argue that if you are working towards your passion in any regards, theater or otherwise, you have a better shot of succeeding however you want to define success in your own personal vocabulary. And so here's the thing. People get roles because they earn them at Faith Lutheran. And if you want to get a role that somebody else is perceived as always getting or something, my argument is, what can you do to make your proverbial game in the whole preparation for a theatrical audition better? And my job is to give them every opportunity to up that game. And that's my greatest privilege at Faith. And it's often not taken, you know what I mean? Which is very sad.
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the show, is that you've got to work towards it. You have to. You can't just sit back and feel entitled. And isn't that an entire generation that's coming up? We call it the entitled millennials.
It's very, very true.
You've got to work for it. It's not going to come. And even when you do, there's no guarantee. Because you do your preparation and you work your butt off. And then you go to the audition. Once you're done, you're done. It's out of your hands. Whether you get it or not, those are forces beyond your control. But your chances at getting it are diminished greatly if you don't work for it. And again, there are no overnight successes. They work forever.
Can I tell you, I never have any, I don't want to say never, but I have very few problems with students in regards to that. it's usually the parents that don't understand. You know what I mean? Because they aren't in the room with the auditioning. They and I don't blame students for having a, for lack of better words, a chip on their shoulder, because it's this generation and society's influences. I mean, it's a matter of convenience. I mean, every student today is given every single thing that they need and in most cases want.
I'm sorry, a third grader doesn't need a cell phone.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
And that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, it's a. I remember there's this joy that I see too in these kids that do want it and that are going after it. That it's so funny, and it's this thing that was a turning point for me as an actor, where and I'm going to mention names. It was Brandon McClanahan and I were doing a show together, and Brandon McClanahan was staring himself in the mirror and he was doing his lines and he was watching his face in the mirror and he was just so intense and I watched him and I sat there and I stared at him for a couple minutes and I thought to myself, I remember when I loved it that much. I remember that. And it kind of made me sad. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I do love it that much. I just love it differently now, and the way of my craft has changed and has grown, but I love that passion and I love to see that in these kids that are hungry for it and that are going after it and trying to grow and
become. True. I think part of the maturation of your career in theater, in growing as an artist, is discovery, is what you can effectively afford the piece or the industry or the if you would have asked me if I was going to be a high school theater teacher in college, I would have laughed you out of the room. I mean, I was a C+, B- student all through high school. Why? Because I loved socially high school, but I got so bored to tears in high school. It wasn't even funny. But it was that one side job that I took, directing a play for a high school, that changed my worldview as to why theater is so important in schools and at that age group.
Well, you spoke to a couple of things without actually touching on it. You said, why do the kids flock to your room during lunch? You provide a home. You provide an outlet for a kid that's not going to find their place on the football team, that's not going to find their place in anywhere within the sports realm. I mean, you've got to and it's the sensitivity they bring that contributes to that's where they find themselves, is in the drama classroom, in the art class, in the music class, and unfortunately these are what we're cutting.
And I like giving examples. You walk down the hallways of any high school and you look at the team photos of sports teams, and here's the thing, I want to be very clear here. I grew up in a sports family. Okay, my brother was pitched 4 perfect games in high school, was an all-state pitcher, went to Adrian College as a southpaw pitcher. Very proud of my family, and I have nothing against sports. Played high school baseball myself. But you look at these team photos, and they're all in military lineup, and they're all with stern faces, not a single smile on the team.
Can we just say right now that we're not
bolstering anything?
Yeah, we're not perpetuating stereotypes. No. Then again, stereotypes are there for a reason.
But I'm just saying, I'm trying to make a point as to what you touched on. The reason why they're all like that, it's not because they're hardened personalities. It's more that that's what you do. And I think that kind of I'm going to get myself in trouble here. I think that kind of cookie cutter thought process is what is expected, and it leaves very little room for personal interpretation or creativity. And if one student were to ever give a big old smile in that photo, that photo would be viewed as all fingers and points would go to that one kid who's breaking the mold.
Now talk about the theater
club. Now, theater, we embrace that.
The strangeness, the ookie, the kooky.
That's right. The creative differences that make us weird and unusual is what makes us blossom in an ensemble.
But one of the things that I think is really beautiful, that I think is important to touch on, is that some of my favorite actors, I call them the jocks turned actors.
I love them.
And
love them.
Without fail, they're brilliant. They're so brilliant, and it's always shocking to me, and I love it. And I think that there's this awareness of their body and awareness of their aggression
poise,
and awareness, and the things that they are taught to think about. You know, I mean, the Greeks believed that that athleticism was academia, that intellectualism was athleticism, that if you increased one, you increased the other, and it worked both ways, and you know, and they've done studies where they've shown that someone who's physically fit has a greater capacity to learn. Like the thing they used was chess, and someone who is physically fit had a greater mental capacity for learning chess, and that their game score could diminish if their health was compromised. And so it was this thing that was tied in between the two. And I think that sometimes there's something to be said for the fact that I think that theater kids could learn a lot from being forced to play an organized sport and to be taken out of their own comfort zone. One of my favorite theater teachers told me once that, you know, it's a very cliche quote, but man, it applies so well to theater, is that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having human experience. And the more human experience we get, the richer we become as actors. That he said, if you want to become a better actor, and it was the thing that Troy was talking about, you know, don't necessarily go to college. Again, I'm an advocate for education, but I believe that on top of that, learn to play the guitar, go rock climb, you know, go scuba dive, and those things are going to enrich you as an actor. And I believe that, you know, that even in a lot of cases, coaches are more aware of it than theater teachers, because I know a lot of coaches that make their football players take ballet.
Yeah, that's the proverbial 80s movie stereotype, you know. You break to the football player in the ballet studio, you know, fumbling with the pretty girl at the bar. You know, it's very, very, very true. And here's the thing. I think one of my favorite success stories is Andrew Edens and Cash Black, and I'm name dropping here, two captain of the football team, captain of the basketball team that went all state that year, tried out for Into the Woods, frankly, because the girls that they were respectively interested in were auditioning for the show.
And good for those girls.
Good for those girls. And they auditioned, and they sang wonderfully, got cast as the two princes, stole the show, okay? Both of them went on to college careers in performing arts, and one of us is a professional actor now, the other one's in radio, and are extremely happy about it. I think it's just you know, it happens to everybody. I mean, in high schools, you get trapped into schedule. Sometimes it's out of your control. You have to take an elective in computers or health, and you can't take the drama class or whatever. But, you know, and I think the kids have their own set of things that they wrestle against every day. You know, it's social things that bind them to wanting to find acceptance in wherever they find shadows in the school, you know. But I just think that being the most important thing, and I'm sorry, I keep bringing it back to high school, I apologize, but the most important thing a high school teacher can do for a theater community in a high school environment is to make it as welcoming and opportunistic as possible. The more you can welcome, you know, these students into the process, the more jobs and opportunities and things that you can afford these students, the richer the blend of ensemble will be. And the more feverishly people will want to be involved.
Well, it works on both sides. It works for it works for the teacher because you get great shows, but it works for the student. There's a theater academy in Columbus, Georgia. The Springer Opera House started the Springer Theater Academy. Gosh, maybe 15 years ago, and it's blossomed into this great regional thing. They have their own facility now, and their motto is life skills through theater skills. You know, and that's where you get it. It's called educational theater for a reason.
Right.
I mean, you're learning acting, directing, blah, 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 but you're also learning social skills. You're learning self-awareness, you know, that's stuff you need that will advance you in anything you want to go into.
Right. It's important. I mean, that's just life right there.
The arts are the sciences applied, you know, like all the things that we're learning, you know, we learn math, we learn science, we learn these things. We learn spectrum and color and analysis and emotion and psychology. And then all of that stuff, the only place that we have to truly apply them is in the arts side of the school, which is why I think that, you know, the arts being cut back is so ridiculous. But that, again, is also another topic. You know, and I think that it's constantly a growing thing. And what's really been beneficial for me is the things that I'm taking from you guys to make me a better coach and a better director is that I don't think that there needs to be a difference between, like we were saying before, where I'd asked you specifically, what is the difference between you as a high school theater teacher and as a professional teacher? And I need to be bringing that to them, and I need to be telling them that they're on an even slate, and I need to be creating this welcoming environment for them. You know, and simultaneously, I think that one of the things that I can be instilling in my students that I've never actively tried to instill before, something that Troy said, which is that Goonies attitude of never say die. You know, I think that can be taught. I don't think it's something that's innate. I think that if you tell them, if you want to be successful, this is the time that you have to invest. This is the work you have to do. And if you, I believe children will rise to the level of expectation that is set for them.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, I think back to that, there's a great Laurence Olivier quote where he said that, you know, he says, you're always chasing the next big role, and you always believe that when you get it, that your career will be made, that will be the moment when you've arrived. And then all of a sudden you stop and you're 80 years old and you look back and you realize that you've had a career. You know, and I think that that's so true, that with that, trying to fill that void in us, that it's always going to be this endless chase, this thing, and that is our career. That's what we do, you know? So.
Well, and I hope that students have fun, too, because here's the thing, the most appealing thing on the onset, before anybody gets involved in a production or anything, is that it's fun, it's welcoming, it's you know, I mean, it's the same, you know, toddler preschool mentality of creating a picture, having these beautiful colors in front of you, and then taking your hands and going blah on the page and making something. And then afterwards, what do? You clean up, you move on, you come back to it and say, look at this, Mom. Put this on the fridge. You know, it's that childlike mentality of, look what I made. Look at this, you know, and it's wonder, and it's what could I do next? What else could I do? You know, and it's coming back to that again and again. There's an endless amount of what else can I do? And so long as you keep that vibrant kind of thrill of the chase, you know what I mean? You can forever live in that toddler world of creation. And I think that on the onset is what is very appealing. The spectacle of the theater, the costumes, the makeup, the lights, it's fun, you know? Who doesn't want to stand on stage and receive thunderous applause? I mean, it's so welcoming. But on the flip side, behind the stage, behind the act, you know, when you have to get to that role, it's tough, and it seems so, you know, cutthroat, and it is cutthroat, but boy, it's part of it's the dirt under your fingernails of theater.
Yeah.
You know?
What's funny about that is I'm going to put Troy on the spot again. When we were, one of the times that Troy and I first actually got to sit down and chat about theater was, unfortunately, we were seeing a show, and we both happened to be back in this back corner. And I swear to you, like, I feel really, really bad because it was a well-received show and it was well-reviewed.
Oh, yeah.
But let's
not say the show.
Yeah, we're not going to say the show. But Troy and I saw maybe 10 minutes of it because we just got caught up in our own conversation. It was a lounge environment, so we weren't sitting in theater seats chatting.
Yeah.
You know, but we just got caught up in the conversation about what we enjoyed about theater, and it was great. And I asked Troy why he doesn't act, and his answer was great. Do you remember what you said? I'm sure it's the same thing you'd say now because it's the answer.
Which one?
But he told me that you don't like all that stuff. You don't want to memorize lines and be in front of people.
Too much work.
That's the thing that I think is great. This guy who never sleeps, his reason for not wanting to be an actor.
Too much work, too much pressure. Well, I don't, you know, Katie laughs when I say this, but I'm really a shy person, you know? It's a front you put on when you have to go out, do the curtain speech, shake hands. You know, that's part of the job. You have to do that. You have to shake hands and meet people. But I don't enjoy being the center. Like, we had our wedding party. The wedding. Let's just say the wedding.
That's a show.
You know, it was nerve-wracking having to stand up, and it was a small wedding of family. You know, and a couple of family friends. You know, it was still nerve-wracking having to stand up in front of them. I got to the wedding site early, sat around, helped set up. You know, it was at the Disneyland Hotel, so I was there like 2.5 hours early because the park wasn't open early that day. Damn it! There goes Cars Land. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and sit at the gazebo. You know, I had a chance to sit there and just relax, and then the truck pulled up with the chairs, and I helped them set up the chairs. You know, that was great, and the planners came and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "You know, there's nothing else to do." But when it came time for the wedding itself, I was like, "Oh my God, I have to be in front of people and do this thing. And, you know, it felt like a dress rehearsal seeing Kitty walk up. But it was amazing. But yeah, that's it. I don't enjoy that part of it. I enjoy sitting back in the back row, looking at the audience, enjoying the story, having a good time, you know, laughing, crying, whatever, you know, is the desired response to it.
Yeah,
But that's,
it doesn't help
enjoy.
that Del Valle gave his wedding a D- too.
Oh, God, you know, it's better than some of the other ones he gave me this year.
Some of the musical numbers were just way off.
Hey, and I had live accompaniment. You know, what more can you ask for?
Nice. Well, yeah, and you know something? I just hope that people are trying to get involved in theater on a community level, high school or otherwise, because they love it. Because, you know, if you don't do what you love, if you can't invest yourself into something passionately, I tell my students, I say, here's the thing, go and become a doctor or a lawyer because you love that. Because you look forward to waking up every morning and wanting to do surgery on somebody or debriefing with somebody or going to, you know, but don't do it unless you are passionate about it. And, you know, if you love video games, if you can't wait to get home so you can play more Call of Duty or Halo 4, that is your thing, well, for the love of God, go into video games. I mean, be passionate about it. Look forward to waking up every single day and doing hard work. You know, if
do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Amen, brother.
Exactly.
Amen.
You know, I know we're winding up on time here, so I definitely wanted to leave on another Troy Heard anecdote.
Jeez.
It's my opportunity. You shut up. So here's the anecdote, and again, since we poked a little fun at Del Valle, who, you know, the man does his job, and I respect him for it, and he is honest and unmerciful, and I mean that as a compliment.
Talk about a job that exposes you every single day.
You know, and love him or hate him, the guy speaks his mind.
Right.
You know, and he does his job. That's what he's supposed to do.
I respect the
as a
fact that
critic.
he has the voice to do that, and the means by which.
And the fact that, you know, you can't disregard the man. We're talking about him right now. You know.
Right.
So that, all of that aside, I just wanted to point out, and I'd love for him to talk about it, that Troy did a brilliant thing with the negative press that he got for.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into the whole story. Just the end result, which I thought was genius. It made me like, if I hadn't wanted to already see the show, that would have been the deciding factor.
There's a lot of behind the scenes on that I don't know how to exactly bring up. But well, it's like, okay, summer camp got some really awesome reviews, and it achieved what we set out to do. We wanted to have a stupid, dirty gag fest of 1980s, blah 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 blah, etc. etc. Tony gave it a negative review. Fair enough, but you know, to produce theater, especially on a community level or a grassroots level, you have to be a ruthless self-promoter.
Oh yeah,
and so
you got to be in marketing as well.
Absolutely. And so one thing I've done for online is, you know, you create your own ads.
Sure.
You know, I got a bootleg copy of Photoshop, oops, and got some killer stills, and I started slapping on pull quotes. And I, you know, 4 stars of weekly, something else from a city life. And Tony gave the show maybe a C-, and was saying, you know, this, that, and the other. Well, I pulled out the positives. You know, by all means, if this is your sort of thing, rush to buy tickets. So I pulled out rush to buy tickets, Las Vegas Review Journal, because that's what was in print. Well, he wrote me. And I hope you're not going to get pissed off at me for bringing this out, Tony. But he wrote me and said, you know, you can't do that. So, well, why not? It's in print. No, well, you're misrepresenting me. Closing night, the show had been doing very well, so I figured, you know, okay, I'm a bit of a smart aleck, rebel. Fine. I'm going to do the ultimate. Pull out the worst of the worst that you can say. So I took a picture. It took Joe Hines and Tony Blosser in their nerd characters and pulled out, I forgot what he said, a waste of time, or this, you know, absolutely hard. You know, I'm making this up. Absolutely horrible. Don't see it. Blah blah blah. Put that one online. Accredit it to him. But after I had, you know, before I did that, I took that ad. I sent it to him. I said, well, what do you think about this? He said, well, it does not misrepresent me.
What was amazing for me about it is that the end game of that was genius, because what a brilliant ad for a show that's supposed to be campy and intentionally bad, to take this reviewer's bad remarks and to post that as your press. I thought was a stroke of genius. So I just commend you on that. I remember I texted you and I was like,
you did.
I was like, that was a checkmate move, man.
Well, it was a bit of smart aleckry, and I've got to tell you, I've wrestled with my conscience since then, because the majority of the funds was raised by Indiegogo. So we had all these people who had invested in the show monetarily, and I was thinking, like 2 weeks after, I did that in the heat of the moment. Should I have done that? It was press, but then again, that was the only negative review the show had gotten.
But furthermore, I just think that for me, and I hope that there's like-minded people, and I'm not just, the only one thinking this, but I thought it was really smart, because I knew nothing about the other part. All I knew was you took all the negative captions and put them, and I thought that was great.
And I don't think you mean any disrespect to Anthony. I think it's turning chicken salad out of chicken crap,
well, anybody does that. I mean, the greatest example of this was David Merrick, who produced Hello Dolly. He was called the Abominable Showman. He was one of the largest producers of the 20th century. For a show called Subways Are for Sleeping. I forgot who wrote it. I think actually it was a Rodgers and Hammerstein failure. He took the biggest names of the New York theater critics, the ones who, everyone knew who they were back then. And he went through the phone book and found people in the different outer boroughs with the same names. And bust them in, gave them comp tickets, wined them and dined them, and took their reviews.
That is hilarious.
And ran a newspaper ad, a full-page newspaper ad. Today it would have been like Ben Brantley, but it was Ben Brantley from Brooklyn. Okay? And actually had a photo of that person, so it wasn't misrepresenting the true critic.
Wow.
But he did that. That's awesome. You've got to be ruthless.
Awesome.
And
So
that's a whole other
episode.
episode.
So if your name is Anthony DeValle.
Oh, God, I'm looking for him. I think he lives in Pahrump. I'm bringing him into every show I do from here on out.
And we love you, Anthony DeValle. Keep it up. Keep up good work. And So anyways, we do need to sign off here, guys. I can't begin to tell you how much I love roundtabling discussion with you guys. Please come back. The door is wide open.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. We love this show.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure.
And next time, just let me know what the dress code is.
Yeah, well, Lumberjack Day is now gone, so we'll probably be in winter next. So snowmobile suits.
Okay, snowmobile suits it is.
Yes,
Okay.
and if you guys are looking for a show to audition for, I'm going to again plug Las Vegas Little Theater's Tale of the Allergist's Wife. Auditions are December 10th and 11th at 7 p.m. Go to lvlt.com. .org, lvlt.org, I think it is. Yep. I'm going to plug Musicology Academy. They have upcoming auditions for their 2013 vocal group. Just says vocal group. Go to musicologyacademy.com. And high school theater teachers and students, Master of the House, the Rudy Foundation Performing Arts Scholarships Showcase. Go to Facebook and search Master of the House for more information. Our website's going to be up and running here real soon. It's masterofthehouseshowcase.com. Please look forward to that. And then Sean?
And Sondheim Songs and Poetry that is going to be this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. at Cockroach Theater.
Excellent. And in the meantime, please like us on Facebook. Go over to YouTube and Curtain Call with Erik Ball and subscribe to our archive footage. And we hope to see you. Hope to hear you. No, we hope you hear us. There, I gotta do it around this way. Nobody can see what I'm doing, so this makes no sense.
He just spit on himself. Would you like a tissue?
Oh, dang, man, you like clunked it. Anyways, we're gonna be back again next week, Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. We hope you join us again for Curtain Call with Erik Ball. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
Hey, it's Andrew Keenan Bolger. I play Crutchy in Newsies, and you're watching Curtain Call with Erik Ball.